Do you feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of ways there are to find a motivated seller that wants to sell their house at a discount? In this episode, I'm going to give you the top 25 ways to find a motivated seller, and I'll give you the order in which you should approach these sources of motivated sellers so you're not overwhelmed and you can make decisive action towards financial freedom. This is the podcast for 10xing your income and replacing your W-2 through wholesaling real estate, a strategy where you get paid huge finder's fees for finding a rundown house. My name's David, and I've been a real estate investor for 7 years. I created a process that's helped people close over 10,000 deals called DealMachine. And today, before we dive into the top 25 lists for motivated sellers, I want to stress how valuable knowing the order you should approach these in, which I'm also going to give you. You're looking for your first deal. So to illustrate my point though, let's just talk about somebody who's experienced and how important focus is for even them. So I pay $25,000 a year to be in a group called Collective Genius that meets 4 times per year. And everyone who's a member is a big house flipper. They do 100 deals per year, including wholesaling at that type of volume. Each meeting, the members give a hot seat presentation on what they learned and implemented since the last meeting. And they also ask the group for some help. It's a great format. Every meeting, there's always a new member who's presenting for the first time. And one person came back after his first meeting. I wouldn't name any names, but this happens so frequently. 3 months later, he said he wrote down notes furiously during his first meeting. It was like drinking from a fire hose. And he went back and he just sent his notes to his whole team and told them to try everything. And now he was back 3 months later, the look of distress on his face. He was like white, like very pale, and he did not look well. And he was talking about they tried everything and they did not have any success with anything. So he wanted to know what was wrong. And a lot of the experienced members of the group knew right away that he just tried too much. He simply threw everything at the wall to see what stuck, but he didn't give any particular thing a real chance. So imagine how crippling and detrimental doing everything would be for a new business owner, which is you. So let's tackle one thing at a time so we can focus on getting you results before adding more to your plate. So here are the most 25 popular motivated seller leads, and I will give you them in the order that you should approach them. So if you're starting out, whether you have money or not, I still recommend starting from the very first part of the list, which are the free sources, the sources that will also cost less money in marketing. So they are free to get lists, and then they will also be lists that are smaller and less competitive so that you can buy at a deeper discount while spending less on marketing. So the number one list is called Driving for Dollars. That means you go around and you look for a rundown property that doesn't look as nice as the rest in that neighborhood. And then you write down the address, you look up who owns the property, and then you send them either mail, text message, or cold call, or you leave a door hanger, or you knock on their door and ask if they'd like to receive an offer on their house. The reason why it's so valuable is because it does take time to drive around and find that list. And a lot of experienced investors with a lot of money, they don't end up doing that. So therefore, your advantage as a new person, so that you're not even competing with the biggest investors in town, is to go make this list for yourself. It's a list that you can't buy somewhere. You cannot download this list somewhere, and that is why it's so valuable. List number 2 is the tax delinquent list. I went years without pulling this list, but I just pulled it for the first time for free, where I invest in Marion County, Indiana, which is Indianapolis. And I found the list of tax delinquent properties who had not paid their taxes that year, right from the source. Pretty much every county will have this. It was in a PDF format, which was very strange, but I found a converter to translate that to a spreadsheet. And then what I did is I uploaded it to, in my case, I used DealMachine to send out mail, and I also just sent out mail. Now, DealMachine also has a tax delinquent list, which I've used in the past, but I wanted to compare this from the source for the very first time to really understand how this data works. So those are two options for you to get the tax delinquent list. And I bought a house from an out-of-state investor who was an orthodontist in Utah. He paid $200K for the property 2 years ago. He sold it for me for $160 because working these out-of-state properties was such a hassle. And he was making more money being an orthodontist than getting that real estate investing going. So he just wanted to get rid of that problem. The third list is a lien, specifically a mechanics lien, which is a builder or contractor or subcontractor that's hired to do work, but then the owner of the property doesn't pay them. So they can take their invoice, submit it online even to the actual, property recorder and say, hey, this person didn't pay me. I'm putting this mechanics lien on this house. The fourth is a judgment lien. I'm going to run through the liens here that are most popular. And a judgment lien would be something that happened that's totally unrelated to the property, but a lawsuit decided that the property owner owes this person some money, and they will put a judgment lien on that property. The federal tax lien is if somebody doesn't pay their federal taxes, the federal government will put a lien on their property. And the homeowners association lien is a lien that somebody will put on their property if you're not paying your homeowners association, which some houses have, these nicer neighborhoods that have common space. So all the neighbors pool in their money to keep up with the common area grass, for example. So a lien prevents the property from being sold. If you have ever bought a property, the title company scans these records to make sure there's nobody in the world who has any right to this property. And if there is a lien, they may even coordinate paying that off. Certainly, if there is a lien, they'll coordinate paying that off before you can actually close on that property. And so if somebody has one of these liens, that would mean that they are motivated. They're more motivated than the average property owner. And when we're looking for a great off-market deal, we're not trying to convince or trick anyone into selling their house for a discount. We're just looking for somebody who's truly motivated that does, in fact, prefer speed and convenience over a great price when selling their home. So that brings us to number 7, 8, and 9. These are code violations. The city has rules to keep neighbors and citizens safe. And if somebody has really tall grass, that could harbor it could harbor bugs, it could harbor, certain snakes, or it just could be unsightly for the neighbor's property value. So they have rules that prevent the grass from being tall, and the city will actually then cut the grass if the owner does not cut the grass. And they charge a lot for cutting the grass. So if the homeowner's not keeping up the grass, it probably means it's vacant or the tenant's not doing it. Something is wrong there. So in order to get rid of that problem, they might want to sell it to you. And I didn't mention this, but those liens you can find, again, on the actual county website. And also, in DealMachine, we have about 75 different lien types, but these are just some of the more popular ones that you can pull. Code violations work without a permit. So, imagine that out-of-state orthodontist that I had actually done a deal with. If he had a contractor that wasn't properly permitting the property, now he's just kind of stuck and he doesn't really know any other contractors. So that's why having a permit, work without a permit code violation could be a really great motivation for you. Trash or debris is another code violation. So that means the tenant isn't taking care of the property, which might mean the landlord is pretty much done being a landlord, would rather just sell the property. All right, number 10 is pre-foreclosures. So you can actually find properties where people have missed their mortgage payments. And the best thing to do, you can get those again from the county website for free, and they're also in DealMachine, is put these properties on a list, drive to each one and leave a sticky note or knock on their door. And DealMachine has the ability, if you upload a list, it'll give you GPS directions in the most economical way to drive by each one of these properties. Very effective way to do a deal. Pre-probates, that's when the owner died and the owner did not have a will to say where this property should be, should go next. So it goes through a probate process through court. And there's a lot of motivation here for these types of properties, especially if there's two kids and they don't want to be landlords or share a property with each other. They could only split cash. And so doing a deal is very advantageous for these probate situations. Hey guys, if you know you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom. All right, so those are some free lists that you could get. Now let's go to number 12, which is for sale by owners. You can just go to Zillow and you can filter for sale properties, but uncheck the box that says listed with an agent, and you'll find people who are trying to sell their own house. And so these phone calls that you'll make will be going directly to the property owner, and you know they want to sell because they've listed it for sale. Great leads. Number 13 is a little bit harder to get, but I wouldn't let that discourage you, because once you've mastered these first 12 lists, the eviction list is not something I can get in bulk automatically from the state of Indiana, but I have submitted a request to get the bulk data. The online search tool only lets you look at one eviction at a time. It is public record, but it's just not easy to get in bulk. But if you go through the extra process, whatever that may be, you can really probably make a killing because not a lot of people are attacking this list from the investor side. Same thing with 14 water shutoffs. So I live in Austin, Texas. It's actually very easy to get that water shutoff list. But in Indianapolis, the water company doesn't have it. So depending on your county, it could be possible or it might not be possible. But you got to ask the water company and also do a public records request. Some counties will put liens from the actual water company if they don't pay their bills. So that could be another place to look, is where your county shows liens, or in DealMachine under the liens category. Okay, arrest records, same thing. You can look at all the court records in Indianapolis one at a time, but not in bulk. It's more visible in bulk in some other counties. So if you are mastering all 14 of these lists and you get to 15, this could be a really great one for you. 16 is 100 plus day old listings on the market, and that's it. So I've actually done a couple deals this year by taking a look at 100 plus day old listings and simply sending an offer for 70%. Was doing some of these blind and actually made $50,000 on one property alone by doing that they just simply accepted without even talking to me. So you never know. I did have to send like 300 of those offers to get one deal, but it is free to send an offer. It just does take some time, depending on the technology that you use. 17 is houses listed for rent for a long time. So you could find those on Zillow for rent, and you could click on the certain ones and see if they've been listed for like 2 months. I know as a landlord, if I have a vacancy for 2 months, I've paid my mortgage twice and I've gotten zero income. So it's like a double hit to my bottom line, and it could be worth just selling if there's equity there, if the property is not a property that rents very easily. And the phone numbers of the landlords are right there on the listings. 18 would be foreclosures. So similar to pre-foreclosures, but these are definitely scheduled to be auctioned. And you can auction and bid on them, but you'll need a cashier's check. So it is the last of these top 18, which are the free lists to buy, simply because you need a cashier's check, which is either your cash or someone else's that's giving you their cash to bid on these properties. So that's why it's last, even though it's a free list. Now let's talking about lists that cost a little bit of money. So you could go buy a list, or you could subscribe to something like DealMachine, and there's a 7-day free trial, $79 a month subscription to pretty much get unlimited access to these kinds of lists very easily on your mobile phone or your desktop. Number 19 is the first one of the paid lists, is vacant homes. If they're vacant, nobody's making money there. Number 20 is expired listings with high equity. High equity means typically above 40% equity. And there's actually a quick list in DealMachine, so you can see these listings that didn't sell with the realtor, and they're available for you to market directly to the homeowner now that they didn't sell it. Number 21 is tired landlords, which is simply properties owned by landlords for over 15 years. They were gung-ho on investing, and now this thing's gone 15 years without being updated, so it's not in perfect condition anymore and may be willing to sell it just at a discount. Number 22 is senior owners over 65. as we age, unfortunately, our needs change. So if they're a senior owner, and maybe it's run down, that could be a great, great lead. Number 23 is zombie properties. So that's a vacant property that is set to go through the foreclosure process, but it's kind of in limbo. Nobody lives there, so they're not getting the notices about their property being auctioned soon. And so those, if you can track down the owners through some type of private investigator or contact information or getting a hold of relatives, which is available in DealMachine. If this is coming out after November 20th, brand new feature, you get all that contact info, even their sibling info included in DealMachine at no cost. Normally that costs, money to quote unquote skip trace it, but we give it to you for free. 24, absentee owners. So this is the basic advice that most newbies get, but look how far down on my list it is because everyone's hitting it. Plus, just because they're an absentee owner, that just means the owner does not live there. They are renting it out to someone else. There's a ton of those types of property owners that aren't motivated to sell it just because they're absentee. I mean, I'm one of them, but I don't want to sell any of my properties. And then 25 is an out-of-state owner, which is just like absentee, but it's even better because they're way further away from their rental property, just like that orthodontist I mentioned, who didn't really have a great handle of what was going on and did end up overpaying or, making mistakes along the way that made his investment way less lucrative than he was expecting. So could be motivated. The last part of this list is expensive because it's pretty easy to get those lists, as you saw with DealMachine, and it's fairly broad, meaning just because you're an absentee owner doesn't mean that you want to sell. There must be something else going on there. So these bigger lists means you have to send more mail, cold calls, or text to the owners before you get one that responds like they want to actually sell their house. And the more popular the list is, just like absentee owner is not only big, but it's so popular, more investors are going to be talking to that seller, making it harder to negotiate a great price. So at the top of this list, number 1, driving for dollars, is more niche and less attacked lists. So it saves you money on marketing, and it also allows you to buy at a deeper discount with less competition. So start at the top so you can take less risk with your money and make a bigger finder's fee as well, because it's less competitive. Then add in the next one on the list one by one until you get down to 25. If you want to know how to speak to a motivated seller, check out episode 68 of the DealMachine podcast, which is 4 conversations to your first deal with our guest, Dan Toback, who's done over 700 deals. And if you want a masterclass on direct mailing motivated sellers like these, check out Masterclass 18 with Justin Dossie. Real estate coaches, they charge thousands of dollars for the frameworks that we give you in these masterclasses. And we've got them up on Apple Podcasts with a 3-day free trial and $3.99 unlimited access. They're edited down and straight to the point so that you can take away as much value and speed up your learning curve to financial freedom. Let me know what you thought of this episode at Lecko on Instagram. I'd truly love to hear from you if this was something you'd like to see more of, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.